Welcome everyone to another Surgecast. Super excited to have you all here. We've had a really busy few weeks. I don't know if you guys have noticed, been paying attention to the newsletters, but we're growing so quickly. We had 20 something new members join just in July so far. It's only the 18th, so very, very big month for us. We've got a very full pipeline as well, about 27 or 28 projects in the pipeline. So great work, everyone. Congratulations on getting things going. Super excited because today we have John McDonnell here with us of SunRenu, who's one of our earliest CPCs on the platform. Very well experienced. In fact, did something similar to what we're doing here at Surge with WattHub several years back and reached out to me on LinkedIn. What was it? Maybe like a month ago, John, I think, maybe 2 months back.
Maybe 2 months ago.
Yeah, and just said, hey, it looks like you're building something similar to WattHub and would love to provide any insight or advice or tips and tricks I might have. So we got together and then, brought you on board, which has been great. You've been picking up projects left, right, and center. So congratulations on all of that. So we're happy to have you here. I know everyone's smiling and excited to hear your story and have your expertise on this Surgecast. So why don't you just start us off, tell us your story. What got you started in solar and what was really the origin of your journey in the renewable space?
That's a good question. So how did I get started in solar? So I used to work offshore drilling for Stamper Oil, and then NASA called us up to drill on a meteor, on an asteroid. So we had to hit the 800-foot depth and drop a nuke down there to save the world. And so it wasn't until I was up there that I really thought, well, I need to save the world in other ways too. So I decided to get into solar. Yes, someone who's an Armageddon fan. Somebody got it. No, just playing. So my background was commercial real estate before solar, and I got into commercial real estate real early. I'm a New Hampshire boy at heart, so I grew up, born and raised, went to college in New Hampshire. Found that it just wasn't really my thing. All my friends went down to Boston, worked in the financial sector, and I'm like, I want to do something different. So packed my car up and left, and it was kind of on a whim and kind of found my way. I met the right people, got into commercial real estate, did really well. Height of 2005, 6, and 7, and then 2008 hit and everything crashed. So good man, James from Beantown. So once it crashed, and I also had an asshole boss, so I'm like, all right, I'm going to start my own company. And I don't know anything about starting a company, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to do everything he did, but the opposite. And so I got in, really just hustled. I out hustled everybody. So I think that's the Northeast work ethic that we put in, work long days, learned everything there is to know about solar, bought the book Foothold Hick, like 101, I forget what the name of it is, and I learned the chemistry behind it, which when I ask people how solar works on a chemistry level, more than half don't even know. So I just learned everything there is to know, and we built, coming from commercial real estate, we had everybody's name and phone number that had a building, and it was an apartment building that I brokered. And so we just kind of cold called. We dialed for dollars, built up a huge pipeline. There was no financing back then, which makes solar go round, but PPAs were just being introduced in like 07, 08, and they became a thing, and utility companies were giving away money when I first started, but it was also $8 a watt. So we started, we did one project that we subcontracted. We're like, wow, look at all the money we're giving away. So we're like, we're going to hire our own people and self-perform. So really early on, 2008, 2009, we built our own crews. And from there, we've grown organically. So SunRenu specifically, the EPC, has been in business for 16 years. We have self-performing crews in Arizona, California. There's nothing that we haven't touched that we haven't seen. We've built everything: superstructures, carports, rooftop, ground mount, building integrated stuff. We've done wall-mounted panels. We've done bifacial awnings. You name it, we've built it. So we've got a lot of knowledge behind commercial solar, which is, I think, what makes us attractive for a lot of people to team up with us, because we know what makes a deal, and we know what we should not waste time on. because we've been around the block. So
Yeah, very
that's
valid.
yeah, that's kind of the origin. And in 2011, I started WattHub, and what Ali was mentioning, watthub.com is today it is a platform that you could submit bills and get a design and proposal kicked out. And we pivoted. We did a lot of what Surge does now, and then I commended Ali for starting Surge, because there's a place for Surge and there's a place for WattHub, and they can be complementary. But we found back in 2011, there was a lot of people that didn't know commercial that were bidding on commercial, and that made for bad business. It made for sour partnerships. It made for all different things that wasn't good for our name as we were administering a connection. So I offered a little advice to Ali on how to vet deals better and how to do her thing, and it sounds like she's doing it. So uh, yeah, we're nationwide. We know every rate schedule in America. We have a full team that does design and proposals for any state, any co-op, any areas. But a lot of what we do is disqualify deals, unfortunately. That's just the nature of commercial. That there's one question that you have later, that what do we avoid? Car washes, uh, gas stations. They're just tough deals. Marijuana facilities, like you just they don't close. So
Mhm. Interesting. Yeah, I'm excited to dig into that further because, the title of today's session is how to qualify your leads properly. And, with everything you just said, it's clear that you have so much experience. You know the industry inside and out. You even know down to the chemistry of how solar panels actually work, which plenty of people in the industry don't actually know, funnily enough.
Mhm.
So what I love about your energy and your drive is that you've really invested yourself into this. You have left no stone unturned. And that
Mhm.
makes you such an amazing resource and an amazing partner for the people on our platform that are looking to get these deals done and get them done properly, which is our goal, right? As you pointed out, with WattHub, you had a lot of issues with people just bidding on jobs. They didn't know what they were doing. And
Mhm.
what we need to have on Surge is people who do know and who are going to approach these in the right way, not just coming out of residential and thinking it's the same thing, because it's not, right? It's so
Correct.
different.
It's a totally different beast, and so it, there's a lot of people that can bend 1 inch wire, but can you bend 3 inch wire? Can you pull 500 MCM? And that's specific. I haven't done it, so that I'm not the guy that is pulling the wire and installing glass. That's not who I am. But several businesses, and very successful businesses, on knowledge of how to do it. So I know how to do it, but I've never done it.
Right, right. Well, you've multiplied your knowledge through the people that you've employed, right? Like you have so much
Yes.
coverage that you're able to provide a network really and provide a resource no matter where the project is. And I like that you said, you're picky, you're selective. A lot of what you do is disqualifying deals.
I'm the no man. So a lot of my team, I've a lot of employees. We have about 25 employees between the two companies, and they're like, "Oh, I got this deal. We've got a champion." So the number one thing you need in a commercial deal is a champion inside the deal. It could be the CEO, could be the general manager, could be the facilities guy. You need the champion. You need someone that wants to do it for the right reasons, not because they're going to save a bunch of money. You want them to do it for the right reasons, be their own power producer, all the ancillary benefits like, uh, cooling. There's a million reasons why people want to go solar, uh, and you need that champion. So a lot of our team members come to us like, "Hey, got this deal. I got the champion. It's great." And I'm the no man. I'm like, "No, that's not going to close." And I'm like, "Happy to run it, you know, but you're going to get down to the line. You're going to get to a point where the decision's made and they're not going to move forward." And 9 times out of 10, I'm right. But
Hmm.
I love putting my foot in my mouth. I did that with a project. It was 483 kilowatts in Death Valley. And I said, "Aaron, forget it. Not going to close." He's like, "But I got the champion. I got the champion." I'm like, "All right, cool. Awesome." Like, it's a national park service. So you get another layer of complexity. I said, "All right, if we're going to do this deal, we're going to price it up." And so we priced it up. And they're like, "We love it. Let's do it." And so they move forward. And I happily put my foot in my mouth for 483 kilowatts in Death Valley. Biggest project in National Park Service history.
Wow. Wow,
So
congrats.
thanks.
That's amazing. So I'm
So
curious, in terms of good projects and bad projects, right? I think
yep,
that's what a lot of people here want to know about. That's what, people are struggling with is like, how do we not waste our time, right? Especially for the
yep.
sales reps on this call, which is a majority of people. How do we not waste our time? What is a good project? What is the best project where every single time you're hands down in, you want to put together the numbers, you want to propose it, you want to close it, you want to install it, and why, right? Like, why is
Mhm.
that the best project?
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing is the champion. You need the champion. So somebody could be so motivated to do it, but if the economics aren't behind it, it's not going to move forward. And so business owners aren't in the business of paying more for energy, and that that's our competitor. Our competitor is not XYZ company, ABC company. That's not our competitor. Our competitor is the utility company. What does the customer save? And if the customer saves double digits, so 10 cents a kilowatt hour or more, and it has to be done through Energy Toolbase because you can't use Open Solar, you can't use Aurora, you can't use Solo, you can't use any of the residential software to calculate true avoided costs for commercial. So that's tip number one. Um, so if the avoided cost, the actual solar savings is above double digits, project has legs. But what we'll find a lot in the Midwest, Texas, Florida, big residential states, not worth your time in commercial because you're going to see the avoided cost being anywhere between 5 and 8 cents. So it doesn't produce an economically compelling argument, even if you have a champion. So that's number one. So system size is number two. Is you want 100 kilowatts or more. There's no money to be made with 20, 30, 40 kilowatts. You're going to have a really hard time getting a qualified installer to do that. And so we set our minimum at 100 kilowatts. We do build some projects that are less than that, only if we own them ourselves for tax credit reasons. But typically 100 kilowatts, you're going to need a $3,000 or $4,000 electric bill. That's probably worth your time because one of our biggest arguments from our channel partners nationwide is, you know, I've got this 40 kilowatt commercial deal it's a really tough deal. So, we need to bid it thin, and so we don't make a lot of money, and so our revenue share is less than a commission. And so they're like, I can make $10,000 in selling a house. Well, I'm like, good for you. Your commission's $5,000. But that's why we say there's not a lot of money in small projects because it's not only the complication of uh, the project itself. You still have to get PE stamps. You still have to do everything that you would do for a bigger commercial project. Um, but you get no economies of scale. And then you're going to have a lot of residential contractors that want to build it for you. But then we've had nightmare stories about residential contractors building commercial. And even sometimes we've hired a commercial qualified subcontractor. They hire an unqualified residential contractor and they screw the whole thing up. They end up having to rebuild it twice. And so our quality, our QA, QC is really high in the industry. And we make sure that our client is insulated with all this stuff so we don't, screw up their building or go in for change orders. Um, but that's kind of part of the policy. So system size, you need a champion, and you need the economics behind it. Those three things make a qualified lead.
Really great points. Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting to me is your use of the word champion, right? Because what you're implying is that it's not a typical sale where you go in and you're selling to a customer because this is a company and they have a team, they have multiple people in charge, different departments, different leaders, they have a CEO, COO, CFO. You need one person in that organization that's already sold.
Yep.
You need one person who's already sold, already on board, and is actually helping you sell the rest of their company. Am I hearing that correctly?
100%. We could sell all day long. You could be the best salesperson in the country. But if they think they're getting sold or they have their guard up, it's going to be a elongated, long sales cycle, long process. And so we've seen, like you mentioned, there's boards, either board of directors or boards for nonprofits. Going through that process, it's going to take 6 months. And so whether it's an HOA or a nonprofit or a church or a school, their decision making is not fast. And that's what elongates the sales cycle of solar. So do you want to go through a 6-month process and then go through a 3-month process and get them financing and then build the thing on a 40 kilowatt to make a little bit of commission? No, it's not worth it. So that's a lot of what we disqualify is based on size and project economics.
Of course. Yeah, because it's, it comes down to your hourly rate, basically. I mean, you're going to spend the same amount of hours working on the project, having these conversations, writing emails, working up the numbers.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, if the commission's a lot lower, then you spent the same amount of time and you're getting a lot less money out of the deal. So you got to make
Yep.
sure there's a margin there.
Correct. So
Nice.
bigger deals are easier to finance. Bigger deals have more available for investment capital. So they're easier.
Right. Now, what about industry? Do you target specific industries, specific verticals? I mean, you mentioned that there's certain things you avoid, gas stations, car washes, you said marijuana facilities. Like, what are the reasons why a specific industry, or I guess business function, could be DQ'd as opposed to a great fit?
Yeah, so real quick, car washes, they're big energy users, but they have the tiniest little buildings. So they're constantly pumping water and doing that. So they're using tons of energy. But there's no place to put solar. And typically car washes already have canopy systems, whether it's fabric or trellis systems or something. You got to rip that down to build something else. So that's what we say is hair on the deal. There's a lot of hair on the deal. It's complicated. Complication exponentially raises the cost to do it. And so now you're talking about a high price, project. Car washes on new builds. So if you're going to build a solar canopy instead of that, perfect, go for it. But existing car washes are tough. Gas stations, 9 times out of 10, you can't use the gas canopy, which I see proposals all the time. They submit like, hey, I need financing on this gas station, and they use the canopy. And the canopy, unless it was built for solar, you can't structurally put solar on it. So the only company I know out there is QT that has, had that in mind when they're designing their gas stations. And so same thing with the convenience store. They've got coolers, they've got lights, they've got all that. They're high energy users, but it's a small building. There's no place to put solar. So those are the complicated transactions. And then marijuana facilities are marijuana facilities. You can get around financing them if you finance it through the real estate entity, but the real estate entity has to be separate than the grow facility. And so we all know marijuana facilities use tons and tons of energy, but again, small building, big energy usage. And so if they own a big plot of land, maybe you can ground mount some things, but no financing company is going to touch it because federally it's illegal. And so it's just, again, complication, hair on the deal. We've never closed one. So we've been in business 16 years. We've closed hundreds and hundreds of, I think we're nearing 1,000 commercial solar projects that we've installed. Not one marijuana facility, not one gas station. And we've done only a couple car washes, but those were special circumstances.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, and the car wash locally, the one I go to all the time, they do have panels, but it's because they have land behind the building.
Okay. Nice.
And they did a ground mount, so I think there's exceptions to the rule, but I think you're completely right. It's a tiny building, high usage. Where are you going to put the panels unless they do have land or they're able to do some sort of interesting, unique structure?
Yep.
Well, Emmett had another question here. So, we get the DQs. What are the qualifiers? Like, if you could have 100 leads in your pipeline right now and you would be thrilled, you'd be like, taking your family out to dinner, you'd be celebrating, right? Getting a bottle of champagne. What would those 100 leads look like? Who would they be?
Yeah, you're looking at, with the opening up of, I'll mention them, Sunstone Credit. They're one of the best lenders for solar out there. We're one of their top dealers in the country. They opened up a space that was currently not available. So now office, retail, industrial is a big user. They have big open spaces. Sports, flex, churches, schools, municipalities. Those are the best leads that we see right now. So senior living is usually good, but it depends on, it's hit or miss with senior living. Either they're low density and they're like 1 or 2 stories, which is good. But then you get some senior living that are 4 stories, limited roof space, packed lots. It depends on what we call the constructability of the site. So that's, I guess, another tip is when you get a lead, you want it to be, $4,000 or more in an average electric bill. You need a champion. You need the solar savings to be double digits or greater, and you need to look at the facility and see if it's constructible.
Great points. Really great points. And you mentioned senior care facilities, and we did have that massive project pop in the pipeline last week,
Yep.
which it looks like you already jumped on.
Yep.
For those of you who don't know or didn't see it in the newsletter last week, we had a senior care facility, basically a retirement home, very upscale, very nice retirement home, high energy usage, sprawling campus. And I think their bills were around what, 35 or 40K a month on average?
$35,000 a month. Yep.
Yeah. So that's a fairly large project. I did see in the comments, though, you said, it might not be possible to go for 100% offset. So I'm wondering if you can kind of pick that deal apart as you're starting to work on it. I know you maybe don't have all the information yet, but just to put all of this knowledge in context, I mean, you're giving so many nuggets of gold in this conversation. I just want to hear in context as an example with that deal, what are the different elements that are at play? What makes them a great deal? What are maybe some of the obstacles you foresee? How does that all work out?
Sure. Good question. This deal specifically is in California, and we know NEM3 hit. It has to be prevailing wage, and then it's an export. They basically give you a rolling rate, which they estimate around 5 cents a kilowatt hour for export. So we have to calculate that into the economic model. And so you could say, I'm going to 100% no matter what, and your avoided cost is going to be diluted. Your solar savings will be diluted because you're exporting a lot of power at low buyback rates. So we design for value. So we look at not only the avoided cost of how much it's going to save, but that number changes based on your system size. So you move the toggle left and right. You could say 100%, you could say 0%. We find the sweet spot is what is the greatest bang for the buck between constructability and solar savings. Now, obviously, economies of scale has a play in there. So we weigh that against, we do like statistics as we're designing and developing. So this particular candidate, we're probably going to want to design to 60 or 70% offset, and that's going to be the best value. So it's going to give us economies of scale because it'll be a sizable project in kilowatts. And then 2, we're not going to be selling a ton of energy. We like to keep exports below 20%. Like you're always going to export at high noon, but we want to minimize that as much as we can because that hurts the financial model. And we want to bring a proposal back to our clients that is compelling, that is like, look at all the money you're going to save. And then even if you need financing, here you go. It's wrapped in a bow and you still save money. That's what makes a commercial sale. Very few people pay cash. It's just the nature of the beast. Like this senior living facility, they're not going to have $1 million to just drop into solar. So we need to bring a financing option, and we have that. So that's we're doing a proposal for a data center in Phoenix. They use 17 million kilowatt hours a month.
Wow.
A month. So we
Wow.
we blanketed their roof. It's 4.5 megawatts, and it was 8% of their offset. 8% offset.
Wow.
So never seen anything that big. It's not going to be a 4.5 megawatt project. They're going to do some carports out front for the show. So they'll probably do like 800 kilowatts of carports for the show that we're green, we're renewable, because the amount of energy they pay or they buy, their avoided cost is 3 cents.
Hmm.
So how do I make an economic model out of 3 cents? I mean, I could be at $1.75 a watt, $1.50 a watt in EPC, but that's still going to put them above 10-year ROI. They're not going to do it.
Right.
So keep in mind for everybody on the call, if you do a proposal correctly through ETB that has demand charges and 7-year ROI on a cash purchase, that's the threshold for financing. So if you're below 7 years, you can throw a loan on it and it'll pencil. If you're above 7 years, it's not going to pencil. So you need to get to 7 years. So you got to lower your costs, lower your everything. And oftentimes when a customer comes to us and says, I want carports in my parking lot, we come back and we say, you can't have them. I'm sorry. Like it's a 12-year ROI. You're not going to do it. So here's rooftop and it's a 6-year ROI and here's a loan and you save a bunch of money. They're like, okay, cool. So sometimes when you're presenting to customers, they want what they can't have. You just need to educate them on why they can't have it. And you got to do it professionally because you don't want to ruin Christmas.
Right. You need to be the expert and you need to steer them in the right direction, kindly, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to make sure that they're not trying to do something that just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense financially, doesn't make any sense in terms of the ROI. Absolutely. Really good stuff. So I'm curious, with where you're at now, you've got a lot of great stuff in the pipeline. You've got so much going on currently. I know you're a very busy person. What are your goals? Like, where are you headed next? What's your focus for the next 12 to 18 months?
12 to 18 months, we're trying to focus on getting projects. Commercial projects are hard. We had a couple permits we submitted to a city in California, and they said, I don't like the canopy there. Move it. We're like, no, that's where the owner wants it. They're like, we don't care. I'm like, isn't that subjective? You can't tell us that ruins the architectural feature of the building. And here's 5 other sites that you allowed a canopy right in the front. And they're like, yeah, we don't care. Move it. So getting through permitting is hard. If you're not an experienced commercial EPC, it's next to impossible because residential EPCs don't know what they don't know. So I'd caution you with just teaming up with a solar bro that says, oh yeah, we can complete a commercial deal for you. You got to navigate those waters, and we know what levers to pull and push and how to be a squeaky wheel with that. But getting through the next 12 to 18 months, it almost takes that long to do a deal. So our revenue as companies is dependent on how much solar we can install. And that's dependent on how fast we can get permits. And just in general, it's not fast. So we're doing very well. We've already surpassed in revenue what we did all last year, currently by mid-year. So we're doing really well. We're constantly hiring. That's a problem in the industry, is finding good talent that stick around. And the residential industry is kind of weighing in on the commercial industry a little bit, where, in my opinion, residential's down. So all the EPCs are saying, I'll take anything. I'll do it. I'll do your commercial project, and I'll do it for real cheap because I need the work. And that's, we're finding a lot of more competitors with random no-name EPCs I've never heard of before. And some installers or sales orders, so they fall for it. And then they end up coming back and say, hey, can you fix this mess that they created? So
a little bit of cleanup too.
A lot of cleanup. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, so everyone here today, for the most part, it looks like we got a lot of sales pros on this call. I think everyone would love to hear your advice, or even literally homework for the people on this call that trying to get their first few leads, probably want to work with you, right? Because you're amazing. You have amazing case studies. You have so much experience. You're approaching 1,000 projects. You've got nationwide coverage, which means no matter where you are, for all of you on this call, it doesn't matter, right? You can go get leads wherever you are, and John can help you out. So John, what would you say to them? What should they go do? What can they go do to get leads and work with you on Surge?
So recently we got a subscription to a real estate software that we are extracting some of that data in sort of territories, and we're trying to target good utilities, energy community, like the what makes a good deal, what makes a compelling proposal, and we're starting to extract that data, and we want to build a kind of an army of people that will go prospect in those areas. And so 16 years of experience is we know what makes a good deal. You just got to go prospect and find it. And that's how I started. My origin was dialing for dollars from my database of commercial real estate. And 16 years later, we're doing excellent. But it's hard for somebody in residential to just jump into commercial because you need an income. And commercial deals just take a long time. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like I said, sometimes decisions for a customer take 6 months. And then permitting takes 6 months, and then you build it. And so you're over a year, and then you haven't received any money yet. It's tough. We instituted a M1, so we do pay an M1 on permit approval, but that's still here nor there. So advice: just work hard, keep hustling, make the transition. Don't try to cold turkey in commercial. It's tougher than it seems. And so the two guys that we hired on the Watt Hub side, they did residential for about a year while they were prospecting commercial and filling their pipeline. And then there was a line in the sand where they said, all right, I've got these commissions coming in, I can live, let's go. And so they made the decision to jump on board full time. And so I think that was the success story, where unless you've got 6 to 12 months of savings and you live within your means, then I'd say keep selling residential, keep hustling commercial, and we might be able to supply some data of real estate owners that, again, they don't want to be found, they don't want to be solicited, but they've got good properties and good territories and good areas that make a lot of sense. So,
Love it. Yeah, really, really good point there. I think it's important to pace yourself, right? Because these commercial deals do take longer. And our goal with Surge is to speed that up, because we're trying to get all the pieces in place at the right time. All the people that need to be involved, financing, EPC, the right subcontractors if need be, installers, and making those decisions quicker for people, making it compelling. So I really appreciate everything you said. I think we should just go ahead and open it up. I'm seeing a lot of questions come in here to the chat, which is exciting. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here.